Dan, have you got any hope that you're going to be party poopers this weekend?
No, none. Absolutely none. Pack up the podcast and go home. Villa have lost 10 in a row at the Etihad. They've conceded 35, scored only 4. It's going to be a step too far for Villa to go there and get even a draw. I just can't see it happening at all. He'll absolutely fly. At a club where Villa are, you cannot turn down signing him.
Is he potentially one of the best in his position in the world?
There's no hope of you having a good weekend. I even think Manchester United might drop down to 7th to finish in the Conference League.
Welcome back to Baller, brought to you by WhoScored in association with Ladbrokes 5-a-side. I'm your host, Ste Howson, and today we have got Dan Bardell and WhoScored's very own Josh Wright to talk about all things Manchester City and Aston Villa. Before we get into this week's big talking points, there are only 4 simple steps, and I could even argue that there's 3, for you to get involved in the Ladbrokes 5-a-side. You pick a formation, you choose your players, you select their stats, and then you enter your team. But you wasn't going to do 3 of them without doing the 4th, was you? So you know what I'm saying, right? It's that easy, and it only requires a minimum of £1 to enter, and you've got the chance to win a share of £1,000 through our exclusive cash league. Not only that, but Ladbrokes are also dishing out £1 free bets for all entrants. We'll be running through where we think the value lies. During the show, we'll be revealing our teams at the end. Tricky one this week, I would imagine. Tricky one this week. Talking points. Is Steven Gerrard actually going to win the league for Liverpool eventually?
I think it would be incredibly poetic, I think, for Gerrard to do it. I think he obviously made up for it in more ways than one for Liverpool as a player, but obviously people remember the slip. And if he can somehow mastermind a victory or a draw against, well, probably a victory they need to get to win the title. But if he can mastermind that, then I think Liverpool fans would love him even more than they do now. But I don't think Gerrard, well, at every opportunity Gerrard's had, he's always distanced himself from the Liverpool job. I think obviously privately he would love to be the Liverpool manager one day, but it doesn't really make sense for him to make that known, especially to Villa, because obviously it just wouldn't go down well with the players. But I can't see Villa springing the upset, but it would be great for the Barclays Premier League narrative if he was the one that helped Liverpool over the line.
Dan, have you got any hope that you're going to be party poopers this weekend?
No, none. Absolutely none. Pack up the podcast and go home. I can't see. I'd love to. We were talking before we came on, and Villa have lost 10 in a row at the Etihad. They've conceded 35, scored only 4. I feel like they'll put up a fight. That you saw the other week against Liverpool. You know, Villa got themselves up for that game, got off to a flyer, started well, but unfortunately conceded straight after they've scored. But I think Man City, they'll just have too much for Villa. Villa are going to finish probably 14th. Whatever happens, we've got an eye on next season now. It's going to be a step too far for Villa to go there and get even a draw. I just can't see it happening at all.
Well, we do see Pep sometimes overthink it in the biggest of big games. We literally spoke about it in our preview for the semi-final with Real Madrid, and you know, I don't know how much of it was Pep overthinking it and how much was just the Benzema show and the inevitability of that. Jack Grealish obviously unites these two sides at the moment. I'll come to you first, Dan, and see what you think. Has he been as bad as everyone's making out?
I think it's quite typical of a big money signing going to Manchester City and being slightly underwhelming in their first season. He's too good a player for it not to work out. Being perfectly honest, I thought he'd go there and absolutely rip it up. I thought the stage was set to him to tear it up for Manchester City down that left-hand side. It hasn't really happened. He's had to adapt his game slightly. I don't think the way Manchester City play suits his natural game at all, but I think he will adapt and he'll come back stronger next season and have more productivity, because that's where you look at it. The goals and assists, the numbers aren't there, but if you look at it, expected goals from assists that he's made, big chances, he's actually up there statistically in the league, Jack Grealish, for what he has created. So I don't think things are as bad as they look, but if I was him, I'd be disappointed because I know how much he hates being a substitute. And he spent too much time on the bench in the big games. But next season, I think that'll flip on its head, and in the big games, he'll be a big player for Manchester City.
I think what he's found I think he's even found it quite difficult to come to terms with, just when you listen to some of the interviews he's given in the last few months or so, that he's obviously gone from being the main man at one club where everything was sort of fed through him, and now he's at another club where he's just a part really in like a well-oiled machine. I think what's been particularly disappointing as a fan of watching Jack Grealish play is that this season, anyway, Pep Guardiola seems to strip everything of what made Grealish fun to watch. Guardiola, he isn't really too interested in spontaneous moments of genius. He'd rather his City players stick to strict patterns of play that are more sustainable in creating regular chances. And you can't really argue with that logic, or Pep Guardiola in general, just because of the trophies he's won. But at the end of the day, football is about having fun, and I thought that Grealish epitomised that for Villa. And obviously, when he had that sort of that summer with England, where he didn't really actually play too much, but he was obviously so fun to watch and everything around him. And I think that's what I found particularly disappointing. He really just needs a big moment in a City shirt, and whether that comes on Sunday scoring the winning goal against his old club, maybe that's it. I thought it was going to be against Real Madrid when he had those two amazing chances and was quite unfortunate not to score any of them. And then maybe he was actually at fault for the two goals that Real Madrid scored because he didn't really close them down enough. But yeah, the basic stats that he'll be judged on, which Guardiola says he's not interested in, but Grealish is, he's only got 3 goals and 3 assists this season. Ruben Diaz has got more assists than Grealish, and Laporte's got more goals than Grealish. So it's not, from £100 million signing the most expensive player in Premier League history, it's not obviously not what you want. And I think that's going to be something that Grealish has to work on. It's been a season of adaptation, and I'm sure Guardiola is happy with the way he's playing and performing in that role in the side. But I think fans of Grealish like myself and obviously Dan would just like to see the fun come back into his game.
I would say because Cancelo's had so much fun down that side, maybe it was unexpected that he plays so much at left back. He plays in all the areas Grealish wants to go. And he's been very, very productive from that side. Cancelo probably top of the stats for Manchester City for a lot of things. I think that's played a part in it as well, because Cancelo just simply goes into the areas that Grealish wants to play in. Grealish needs an overlapping fullback, and that's not how City play.
Yeah, and like even with the 3 goals and 3 assists, I think he has been quite unlucky in some respects, and certainly in the assist column, because obviously you need a teammate to finish those chances. And in terms of key passes from open play per 90, he's actually second in the Premier League this season behind Kevin De Bruyne. So in that respect, he's doing his job. But obviously those chances, I think he's mentioned it himself that sometimes his assists actually for Villa last season were a bit overinflated. I think he said that a couple of hopeful balls actually just managed to find a target and go in the back of the net. So he can't really do too much in that respect. But yeah, there's still certainly things to improve on, I think, heading into next season.
From one playmaker to another, Coutinho. Dan, do you think Villa have done the right thing by making this a permanent deal?
100%. When he gets a pre-season behind him, and that's what a lot of the Villa players need. They need a pre-season under Gerrard. He's had so much issues with fitness and playing time at Barcelona. He's come to Villa in January, been thrust straight into the team. Had some good games, had some bad games. Mainly his good games have come at home. But I think once he gets a pre-season, he'll absolutely fly. At a club where Villa are, you cannot turn down signing him. And I was quite enthused by the fact that Villa actually had an agreed fee of 33 million, but managed to get it down to 17. Signing Philippe Coutinho for 17 million is an absolute no-brainer. Even if he doesn't play every week, 17 million in this day and age is pennies. So I think...
Who signed that off at Barcelona?
Oh, wow, they're desperate, aren't they? Desperate for his wages to be off. And, you know, he's took a massive pay cut to be here. He wants to be here. On his day, he's a fantastic player. If Villa was to sign a playmaker, they aren't getting anyone better than Coutinho. So like I say, I think it's a no-brainer. For
a club like Villa who have aspirations of reaching European football, you need players of that calibre. And I think if you come to the end of the season, if you think, who could Villa sign for £17 million, it's definitely not going to be anyone in the ballpark of someone like Coutinho's calibre. But I think the only thing that perhaps Villa fans, I know, Dan, you obviously have more knowledge on this than me, but I think the one thing that would make it more justifiable is if that Coutinho doesn't play every single game. Certainly if his form doesn't justify it, which I think has been the case, hasn't it, over the last 10 games or so. He's got no goals or assists in that time. But Gerrard's been incredibly loyal to him. And I think someone like Emi Buendia, who was signed obviously last summer, he's played a fraction of the minutes in that time. I think almost half the minutes that Coutinho's had. And he's got 5 goals and assists in that time compared to Coutinho's none. And Gerrard even said himself, I think it was before the first Burnley game, he said about in order for Buendia to play, he needs to start scoring and assisting. And he did that in the very next game, only to be rewarded with a place on the bench. So it's not a great message to send out if that's going to happen regularly. So I think moving into next season, it would be nice to either see a bit of rotation if Coutinho is not playing at his best, just so it sends out a better message to the rest of the squad.
Gerrard wants to play 2 number 10s. We know that's how Gerrard sets up his teams. That's what he did at Rangers. That's what he wants to do. I think in the summer, Villa will sign a proper number 6, a proper defensive midfielder. And I think that will enable them to play Buendia and Coutinho together more effectively. So, as I've said, I think pre-season behind him, Villa getting a pre-season under Gerrard, you'll see those two link up and Villa will be effective next season.
A flawless transition into talking about Rodri. Is he potentially one of the best in his position in the world?
On Monday Night Football, when Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher were talking about their players of the season, I think Gary Neville actually said that Rodri's been Man City's best player this season, and he was actually omitted from the list for the Premier League Player of the Season. I actually think he was left out of the Man City's Player of the Season nominees as well. But yeah, I think at the start of his time at Manchester City, he was... fans almost loathed seeing him in the team compared to Fernandinho, because I think Rodri looked slow, but didn't really read play as well as Fernandinho was, didn't really take up the same positions. Obviously, that's changed massively in the last 2 seasons. Fernandinho is obviously ancient now, but Rodri has really grown into the role, and I think there is a genuine case that he is one of the best in his position. I looked into the WhoScored ratings, and only Joshua Kimmich, of all holding midfielders in Europe, has a better rating. Rodri's second, obviously, and then there's he's above the likes of Casemiro, Tchouaméni of Monaco. So he's definitely filled into that role perfectly. And I think another thing that makes him stand out, especially for Manchester City, is that obviously Guardiola likes his players to press so high to try and win possession back. And a lot of the time, the opposition teams, they just go long to either try and beat the press or because they have no way out. And with someone like Rodri, he's able to mop up those aerial duels. I think he's got the best aerial duel success rate of any central midfielder in the Premier League this season. So I think that just adds another string to Man City's bow in how they can really stay on the front foot for most of the games. But yeah, he's certainly improved massively, just like most City players have really, I guess, when they've been signed by Pep Guardiola. I think just going back to Jack Grealish, what I forgot to mention was that I wouldn't be too concerned at this stage about his season, because we've obviously seen with the likes of Leroy Sané, Riyad Mahrez and Bernardo Silva, Ferran Torres, none of them had particularly good first seasons for Manchester City. I think none of them even played more than 60% of their Premier League games in their first season. But obviously, apart from Ferran Torres, they've all gone on to have been massive successes. So Rodri's the same in that regard. He didn't have a great first season, kicked on massively, and obviously there's hope for Manchester City fans that Grealish will do the same.
I think he's comfortably in Manchester City's top 3 players of the season. Comfortably, probably second only to Cancelo, I would say. He's played the whole season at a level of 7 out of 10 and above. Every game he's been a 7 out of 10 or above, particularly the ones I've seen. He breaks up the attacks. Man City can be quite vulnerable on the break. The amount of attacks that Rodri breaks up with their high line is incredible. He scored important goals this season as well. You know, he's added goals to his games. He's a constant danger from set plays, and it just offers us something different in terms of the physicality that they probably don't have throughout the rest of the side. So I would say, other than Cancelo, I would say Rodri's probably been Manchester City's player of the season. De Bruyne only started playing after Christmas. Rodri's been consistent the whole way through. Yeah,
it's interesting. I think that's one of the benefits that Pep has of being such a massive squad, arguably 2 11s that he could field, is that he does have players that he can bring out of the 11, work with them individually. So you can almost forgive any of his signings a bit of an iffy year, because you know that they're being worked on behind the scenes, and there's a good chance that they're going to come back and be an absolute nightmare in season 2. Yeah, that's for sure. And I think obviously he's blessed with so many good players that even if one player is not playing well, you can take them out of the team and put someone in that is going to perform. So they're always, the team as a whole is always performing well. So I think that does make it a lot easier. And that's obviously credit to what Guardiola's done at Manchester City over the years. All right, final topic for us then. I'll go to Dan with this one. Dan, is there any hope of Villa springing an upset? And I mean, and I say hope, not from a Manchester United fan perspective, as you can understand. I mean, we're in the nightmare scenario here of wanting City to win because of how much we don't like Liverpool. But is there any hope of a Villa upset here? You know, is there potentials with the maybe rotations Pep's going to have to do?
There's no hope of you having a good weekend. I even think Manchester United might drop down to 7th to finish in the Conference League. So there's absolutely no chance of a good weekend for you, whatever happens this weekend. It's football, isn't it? So there's always a chance. I can't see it. And, you know, I've watched every single Villa game this season, either been there or watched on TV. And I just don't see a way in which Villa can beat Manchester City. I don't even see a way in which they nick a point. I get the Pep overthinking stuff, but I don't think he overthought Real Madrid at all. I think it was just a freak thing that happened at the end of the game. If they get an early goal, Manchester City go ahead early, it's game over. Villa don't come back from behind, and Manchester City don't chuck away points from behind. So it depends how the first 20 minutes, half an hour goes, I would guess. I do think there's a slight vulnerability on the break if Villa can get Watkins in behind and catch Manchester City in transition, but is he going to be if he goes through one-on-one? I'm 50-50 over whether he's going to score. So I would, if I'm a Liverpool fan, I wouldn't be relying on Villa at all.
Heading into this game at the start of the week, I thought, there is Man City's defence with Fernandinho starting at centre-back. I would say that there was a good chance that, especially if Watkins and Ings play together as a partnership with how active they are, how busy they are, they run the defence ragged. I thought there was a chance that could be a great way for Villa to create an upset, or definitely give Manchester City some hairy moments. But obviously now we've seen that John Stones is back in training. Kyle Walker's obviously back in training as well. And that sort of extinguishes any hope. Not hopes. I didn't want Villa to do well against Man City, but any sort of concerns from a City perspective, that sort of got rid of that, because Man City have dropped points in 40% of the games that Fernandinho started this season, compared to just 22% in the matches he hasn't started. So there was a real concern, I would have thought, from Manchester City's perspective, that Fernandinho could be the maker of their own downfall, especially with Watkins and Ings. But yeah, it's going to be so difficult. And obviously Villa are 14th for a reason. They're too inconsistent. I just can't see any way that they can keep Man City out for 90 minutes, to be honest.
I think Gerrard factor does play into this somewhat. I think he would love nothing more to be able to do Liverpool the biggest favour he could do them. With it being at the Etihad, all the circumstances being as they are, like Dan said, if City score first, we could probably all relax. I imagine that's probably going to be all she wrote. But if it gets into the second half, City fan base starts getting a little bit nervous. It could happen, and obviously I don't want it to happen. But I don't think it's far from concluded. And I think the games that we've seen midweek this week tell us that there's still twists and turns to be had, even on the final day. Josh, do you want to give us the WhoScored team going into this?
Yeah, so we're starting off with Tyrone Mings to be carded. Obviously, he pulled off a great block against Burnley on Thursday, and he's going to have to do more of that to keep City out. But we think that Man City's front three is going to be too much for him. Only Junior Firpo has been booked more than Mings in the Premier League this season. We've spoken about him already on the show. Rodri, we've got him to attempt 90 passes. He's had 100 or more in 7 of his last 11 in the league, and he averages 96 against Villa. So if you think City are going to have all the ball, then it's going to go through Rodri to try and help City move from side to side and stretch that Villa defence. We've gone for John McGinn to make 3+ tackles. He's made the most in the Premier League in 2022. He's averaging 3.4 per game. Obviously, again, Villa aren't going to have much of the ball, so there's going to be a lot of tackling on their behalf. We've gone for Coutinho to have 1+ shot from outside the box. Obviously, he didn't start on Thursday, but you'd imagine he'd come back in. That's landed in 13 of his 15 Premier League starts since joining Villa. And then to finish off, we've got Kevin De Bruyne to have 2+ shots. He's averaging 3.1 per 90 in the Premier League this season. He's their main goal threat, really. He's got more than double the amount of goals and assists. So there's going to be a lot of him shooting from anywhere, really. So yeah, that's Mings to be carded. Rodri 90+ passes. McGinn 3+ tackles. Coutinho to have 1 shot or more from outside the box, and De Bruyne 2 shots, and that's 22-1 for us on Ladbrokes 5-a-side.
Martinez to concede 2+ goals. I just think Manchester City will score 2, so that's quite simple. That's why I picked that. Mings to be carded for exactly the same reasons that Josh has outlined. He loves a yellow card, and playing against Manchester City, you'd imagine he's going to be in the action quite a lot. But Cancelo to get 75+ passes, that's actually below his average, I believe, 75. So again, he'll be on the ball a lot. You fancy Manchester City to have a lot of the ball, so I think that's a no-brainer. De Bruyne to have 2 shots on target, because it's Kevin De Bruyne, and he usually has 2 shots on target. I believe he's in goal-scoring form at the moment. You could quite easily see him score another hat-trick this weekend. And then the final one is McGinn to be carded. I think he's made the 2nd most tackles in the league this season. He's busy, he's industrious, he's always involved in the action. I could quite easily see him getting booked. And that's come out at 54-1, which, to be honest, I'm quite surprised at, because I feel like all those things could happen.
Mine's a bit of a weak one this week. I went with Cancelo to make 90+ passes. I went with Kyle Walker to make 75+ passes, and I have a feeling that one might not happen because he's off the bench, maybe. I went with Bernardo Silva to make 65 passes, Coutinho to have 2 shots, and Jesus to have 3 shots. Rodri wasn't one of my options for passes, so I don't know how you managed to slide that one by, and I couldn't find that. Otherwise, I'd have had that one. And mine's coming in at 14-1, which I think is the wettest one I've had so far.
I think yours is risky as well, because a lot of people there, I don't know whether they'd start or not.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I was not my best picks, to be honest. I might do another one because that was not the greatest picks that I've seen. Josh, you got the terms for that?
Yep, and obviously the beauty of Ladbrokes five-a-side is you don't actually need all 5 of those to come in to have a chance of winning bets. So you could still be in the money. But yeah, the minimum prize for any entrant, as you said at the top of the show, is a £1 free bet from Ladbrokes. But there's over £1,000 in cash to be given away, including £500 to the winner, £250 to second place, and so on. All you have to do is select your lineup and place a minimum £1 bet. Make sure you enter via the WhoScored League. Some people have been entering in the standard Ladbrokes League, and that hasn't got a bigger prize pool than us. So that's not great for you lot. But yeah, the link to our league can be found in the description of this YouTube video or on our Twitter page. Winning bets are ranked from longest to shortest odds, while non-winning bets, as I said, are ranked by percentage of the bet that lands. So as I said, even if all 5 of your selections don't come in, you still have a chance to win. Yeah, so I think we're going to be cheering on a lot of Man City passes this weekend for our bets to come in. But yeah, that's it. Make
sure you're over 18 if you are going to get involved, and obviously don't gamble more than you can afford. Right, Dan, thank you for joining us for this one. I would wish you luck this weekend, but I don't mean it, so I'm not gonna. And Josh, cheers as usual for joining us in. Make sure to go and check out five-a-side. The link for that will be in the description, and let us know your five-a-sides. I want to know who's been your surprise winners. Get them in the comments and let us know. But cheers, and we'll see you in the next one. Laters.